Compounded interest is where interest is earning interest. And usually that occurs with your credit cards. If you don't not pay off your balance at the end of the month, then you're charged interest, and that interest is also going to be earning interest if it's not paid off. There's a formula for finding compound interest or for dealing with compound interest, and this is it. So A, just write down the formula, we'll talk about the letters. A equals P times 1 plus R divided by N raised to the NT. Just go ahead and write that down. So A equals P times 1 plus R divided by N raised to the NT power. So your exponent is a product. What am I multiplying? What two things in the exponent am I multiplying together? What do y'all see? What is it? N and T. All right, that's your exponent. So when using a calculator, you're going to see I'm going to do this. You need to put that in parentheses when using a calculator. So you'll see what it's going to look like. All right, but so you got to be very careful though. So the calculator usage, you need to know how to use your calculator with these. Okay, so if I look at the letter A, well, first of all, let's look at P. P means the same thing as we did in the previous section. So P would be the principal. All right, the principal. Okay, what do you think R stands for?
Rate.
The rate. What do you think T stands for? Time. Now, N was not in any previous formula that we dealt with, but A was. So A is the amount you, let's say owe. I'm going to put that for right now. A is the amount you owe. Okay. It could also mean the amount that's in the account. Okay, so for example, your credit card debt. So let's suppose you have a credit card and at the end of this month, you have $2,000 in it. That will be A. Then you pay interest on that. So let's say it's $2,040 for the next month. So that becomes the new A. So A would be the amount in the account. All right, or the amount you owe. You can think of it in several different ways. But N, let's talk about N. So N is this. N means the number of times interest is being compounded per year. Interest is being compounded per year. All right, so N is the number of times interest is being compounded per year. Okay, now listen carefully. So there are times, now this varies depending on the bank, but there are times when your interest is being compounded, let's say, monthly. All right, so compounded monthly. So that means every month, that interest earns interest as well, every month. Now, compounded monthly means that N is equal to 12 because there are 12 months in a year. So if you see the phrase compounded monthly, then what's N? 12. If you see the words compounded annually, then N is 1, which resorts back to simple interest. If N is compounded semi-annually, then what's N? Semi-annually means every 6 months. So what would N in this case be? 2. And the other one would be compounded quarterly. So compounded quarterly means every 3 months. So how many every 3 months are there in a year? 4. So it's 4. And it's easy to remember. Think of how many quarters in a dollar. 4. Compounded daily. Compounded daily. What's in? Yeah, well, assume there are 365 days in a year, so you're going to say 365? 365. So that means every day. Okay? All right. Now, let's look at this. I'm going to give you your class examples. So we 2 listed. Okay, so in number 1, you're told that you deposit $5,300 in a savings account that has a rate of 3%, and the interest is compounded quarterly. Okay, interest is compounded quarterly. Part A says, how much money will you have after 8 years? So here's the formula. You're going to use this compound interest form because you're told it's being compounded, and it's being compounded quarterly. And so you're going to use the formula A equals, and put that up here, P times 1 plus R divided by N raised to the NT. So that formula. And the question is, how much money will you have after 8 years? Now, just that phrase itself, which letter do you think you're looking for? A, P, R, T, or N? How much money will you have at the end of 8 years? A. The letter A. So all these other letters you better know something about. All these other variables. So you're going to say A equals. So A equals. So the work I want to see is when it says show work for the worksheet, here's what I'm asking. So make sure this is what you're writing down, what I'm writing down here. So you're going to say A equals P. What's the principal? What's the original amount? 5,300 times 1 plus R. What's the rate? 0.03 divided by N. Remember, N is the number of times is being compounded a year. How many times? It says quarterly. So what's N? 4. N is 4. All raised to the NT power. So what's N in this case? 4. What's T in this case? 8. Okay, so that's what I have. Now, if you know 4 times 8, and it's always going to be that simple, but 4 times 8, if you want to put 32, that's fine. Okay? All right, now here's how you use your calculator. Now listen carefully, and you have to know how to use your own calculator with this. Where's the 4? Compounded quarterly.
Oh, okay.
All right, so on your calculator, for some reason I lost my calculator. Okay, so on your calculator, here's what you do. Make sure you're getting the same thing. Now, some of you don't have the same calculator as I do, so make sure you know how to use your calculator's buttons. But for mine, I just type in what I see. That's the way mine works. So I have 5,300 parentheses, open parentheses, just like this. 1 plus 0.03 divide by 4, close the parentheses. That's what I see. All right, now be careful. So on your calculator, you'll see a button that looks like this. Looks like an arrowhead. See it? Make sure you find it. All right, you're going to press that next. You're going to say raise to, so that raises stuff to a power. Okay, now if you leave it as 4 times 8, then you have to use parentheses. If you write it as 32, you do not need parentheses. But it's not always going to be that simple, so you're probably going to say 4 times 8. So put parentheses, 4 times 8, close the parentheses, and then press equal. Make sure if you did this correctly, you get this, $6,731.59. Make sure that's what you got. Whatever calculator you're using, make sure that's what you got. And just remember how to use it the next time. So $6,731.59. All right, I'm going to give you about another 30 seconds to make sure that's what you got. In Part A, you're told that the amount you will have after 8 years is this. Okay. Now here's Part B. Find the interest after 8 years. So how much interest will you have earned at the end of 8 years? So how do you think you would find that? Think about it. What would you have to do?
Subtract $5,300 from.
Yeah, because $5,300 was your initial deposit. So anything after that is the interest, unless you put more money in, which is probably what usually occurs. But unless you put other stuff in there, other money in there, then the excess is your interest. So to find the interest, you're just going to say $6,731.59 subtract 5,300. So what do you get? What was that? $431? Is that correct? So 1,400, 1,000, I'm sorry. Okay, tell me again. 14, what are the digits? 1431 point, what? 59? Thank you. All right. So that's the interest. Let's look at number two. So number two, you deposit $2,000 in a savings account that has a rate of 2.5%. The interest is compounded continuously. Now let's talk about continuously now. So let's come back to this one. All right. Now when we went over this stuff here, we talked about compounded monthly. Monthly means every month, so 12 months in the year. Compounded semi-annually means every 6 months, so N is 2. Compounded quarterly means every 3 months, N is 4. And then compounded daily means every day, so N is 365. There is such a thing, and it's hard to fathom, but there's such a thing as being compounded continuously. Now, so not all savings accounts do that. Usually they don't. So it depends on your bank. But compounded continuously means this. means more than every day, more than every hour, more than every second. I mean, it's that idea. But don't think that, hey, if it's being compounded so many times that you get a lot more money. You really don't. So compounded continuously is a different formula than this. But compounded continuously, you really can't fathom like you can here, where it says compounded monthly. You know it's every what? Month. So it's how many times a year? 12. Compounded semi-annually, you know it's every 6 months that they're going to do this. So it's 2 times a year. Compounded quarterly, you know it's every 3 months. So you're going to earn interest every 4 times a year. And then compounded daily means 365. This, you really can't think like that. You really can't tell me how many times a year that is. So it's like every second, every split second. Is that idea. So there's a different formula. You use this formula only if it's being compounded a finite number of times. Okay? So compounded continuously, you're going to use this formula. A equals P times E to the RT power. So that PERT formula, some people refer to it. So A equals P times E to the RT power. Okay, now let's talk about that letter E that you see. Now that's actually a number. E is a number. Take your calculator out. On my calculator, E is right here. See, you can't see it up here, but it's right above the LN button. And LN here means natural log, so that's a logarithmic button. But it's right above it. It's right here. And it's blue. It's blue. So E, it turns out, is an irrational number. So that's why we use the letter E. So it's not a number like 2/3 or 4 or the square root of 16. It's an irrational number that we represent as E. Just like pi is an irrational number. So we use pi to represent that irrational number in geometry. We use E to represent this irrational number that's in this formula right here. So on your calculator, here's what I want you to do. Now on mine, this is the way I do it. You got to play around with yours to figure out how to use your calculator. But on this calculator, you got to say second. Now to get to that blue button, I got to press second. So I say second, LN, and then this shows up. I don't know if you can see it. See how it looks? E raised to a power. I'm going to press 1 because I'm just interested in what E is. So E to the first. So I'm just going to press 1. I'm going to close the parentheses, and then I'm going to press equal. And so notice that E is this irrational number. We tend, though, to only use 3 digits behind the decimal point. So E is approximately equal to 2.718. So that's what E is approximately equal to, 2.718. So you use this formula if you see that it's being compounded in what way? Continuously. Use that formula. E is a number. It's approximately equal to what number, though? 2.718. Okay? All right.
So, it is possible to just have that 2.718
What about it?
instead of going to second. I say you can, according to the formula right there, you can keep that E to always be 2.718.
No, E is not 2.718. E is approximately equal to 2.718.
Okay, okay. But
Yeah, so don't
you
use,
can vary anytime.
no, it's always approximately equal to 2.718. It can be 4, it can be 5. E is a fixed number. E is a number. Just like pi is a number. What is pi approximately equal to? 3.14, right? Although you know it's not 3.14 because there are an infinite number of digits behind it. But you don't say, I'm going to let pi be 4. You don't say, I'm going to let pi be 7. You let pi be, if you don't have a calculator, you're going to let pi be 3.14 if you're going to approximate it. But you have a calculator, so you're going to use E. You can use your button, your calculator's E. Okay? All right. Now, let's go now and look at this problem again. So this is now number 2. So let's get number 2. So number 2, you deposit $2,000 in a savings account that has a rate of 2.5%. The interest is being compounded continuously. So since you use the word compounded continuously, you have to use what formula? A equals what? P times E to the RT. That's the formula you're going to use. All right, and then the question is, how much money will you have after 4.5 years? So what are you looking for here? What letter are you interested in finding? A. So you're going to say A equals P. What's P in this case? 2,000 times E raised to the RT power. What's R in this case? 0.025 times T. What's T in this case? 4.5. So notice I put parentheses in the Excel because when I'm using my calculator, I need to put parentheses. So look carefully how you're going to put this in your calculator. Now play around with your own calculator and see how to deal with this. So I get 2,000. I put 2,000 in my calculator. 2,000 times E. So I'm going to press the second button in E just like this. So this is how it looks. So 2,000 times E raised to, and then it automatically puts an open parentheses. What's the next thing I should type in? What should I type in? 0.025 times 4.5, and then close the parentheses, press equal. This is what you should end up with, $2,238.14. So make sure that's what you got. If you're using your own calculator that's different from what I have. So make sure that's what you got.